In 2018, we can name a bunch of powerful women. Oprah Winfrey, Serena Williams, Ellen DeGeneres. But in the past, women were expected to be typical housewives. Let's rewind to women in the 1950s.
Millions of women were employed during World War II as replacements for their husbands. They worked in factories, offices, and hospital wards. But when World War II ended, women were sent back home as housewives when the soldiers returned. Most women went home, but some women fought to keep their jobs, so females made up about 1/3 of the peacetime labor force.
Then, the baby boom caused the idea of women staying home only to take care of children to rise again. Many mothers learned to balance their jobs with their responsibilities of motherhood.
Some common household chores were to care for the children,
Wash the dishes,
scrub the floors,
shine the windows,
iron the whole family's clothes,
dust the house,
and most of all, cook meals. When their husbands came home from work,
Honey, I'm home!
dinner had to be ready and the house squeaky clean.
Many 1950s TV shows portray this typical housewife image. In the show The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, the mother would happily fulfill her role as a stereotypical housewife. The Mother in Leave It to Beaver was the same. The show emphasized how women belong in the kitchen. These women were content and happy taking care of the house in these shows.
The wives would occasionally look for a job but would fail. These episodes were considered comical to viewers.
Clearly, women were still expected to take on these feminine roles, but the 1950s truly was when the tide began to change.
Most women had clerical jobs or service jobs in offices. Others worked as nurses in hospitals. Some even worked as teachers in classrooms. Taking care of the household while working at the same time was unheard of before this decade. Working women were criticized for challenging the traditional role of a housewife.
Feminists all over the country began to rise, including Betty Friedan. She wrote the best-selling book called The Feminine Mystique. It was published in 1963, and it made her name well known in every household in the country. The novel defended millions of women who worked and took care of the household at the same time. This book was one of the sparks of the modern women's movement, calling for equal treatment of both sexes. Women who read this book were encouraged to make a difference. The 1960s and the 1970s were full of feminist marches, which were encouraged by Betty's book. The 1950s was truly a big turning point for women in our nation's history.